And welcome back, everyone, to the Zanpakuto creation series. Back to the good old days before the dark time, before the resurrection. But this one comes from my personal lineup of mediums, and I thought, you know what? I put Lord of the Rings out there. Let's talk Aragorn. Aragorn, what is his Zanpakuto? And it's an interesting idea with Aragorn. Like, what could it really represent him? What would the spirit for him look like? I think it starts off like most, like a standard katana. Now, what type of Zanpakuto it is a little difficult to really solidify, but in the long run, I think it's actually a specialized melee slash Keto type. We'll get into that in just a second. Its release, though, would be claim. I can see it being claim your heart. One second. Claim your heart. Haji Yawarage. Oh God, hold on. I didn't actually try to read this. It's Haji O Yawarageru, or Shame Soother. Now, this Zanpakuto most likely takes the form of his standard greatsword that you see in the Lord of the Rings series. The spirit of this Zanpakuto, I think, most likely looks like one of his ancestors. Particularly, I think it's either his father or great-grandfather. I can't remember the lineage exactly, but or his grandfather. I can't remember the lineage exactly, but it would basically look like someone who went wrong, because it's Aragorn's whole story arc is that he's actually born to be a king, but he doesn't want it because he fears his legacy, his lineage. He fears all of that's inside him. All until he ultimately takes up the reins of being the king, and yeah. So I feel like that needs to translate into both the spirit of Zanpakuto and the ability. And this is where it gets unique, because I think the ability really, when he releases his Zanpakuto's abilities, it's a Zanpakuto that's going to actually gradually get weaker in its Shikai than in its Bankai. But as the Shikai gets weaker, the Bankai grows stronger. What do I mean by that? I think this converts things like guilt and shame into just raw power. And so when he releases it, you see almost like gravity around the blade kind of shift. Even like his Ryatsu would be kind of shifting. It looks like energy is just kind of displacing around it. And so when he swings his blade, like he's literally just kind of cracking the earth, cracking the energy. He can kind of he can deliver super power strikes with it, but it's because he's being amped by these abilities, by his shame, guilt, fear, all that. All these negative emotions are amping the Zanpakuto. I imagine he could probably do some sort of range attack if he really wanted to. He's almost got kind of like a perpetual shield around him, similar to like Yamamoto does in Bankai. But the Bankai itself, King of Forgiveness, or Gyurushi no O, that's the opposite. This is a Zanpakuto that functions essentially as a healer, or it's a full representation of him coming to grips with who he should be, who he is, what his legacy actually is. Because it's derived not from his guilt and shame, but from his peace of mind about who he is, about letting go, about finding kind of like an equilibrium within himself. Obviously, though, this Bankai would be fairly weakened if it were early on in the series, and he were to still be wrestling with all his guilt. Now, what does the Zanpakuto, though, actually do? Does he still have the same effect as his Shikai, just amped now much greater, and to a greater degree with his Bankai? Not exactly. I think that it still carries that ability to a varying degree, but now it's more like it can actually form it's almost like it's an unseen construct of Aragorn himself translated into this king-like figure. So now not only has all the standard abilities, but now if he swings his blade, it's more like he could easily casually swing his blade. It could kind of act like Komamura's Kokujo Tengen Yo. It could act something akin to that. And unless someone can kind of sense or has extra sensory perception, I don't see anyone really seeing this effect. This could also be referenced to when he led the Ghost Army as well. This is kind of like him leading his true spirit, the true power of the king. But in the early days of the Zanpakuto, it actually would be the Shikai that's stronger than the Bankai. The Bankai might still have this effect, but there would be there'd be no real form or mass to this unseen being. If anything, I think it actually would be that this form would be completely visible, and that people could see it fighting on Aragorn's behalf, or fighting with Aragorn. I think, again, it's similar to Zanko no Tachi's Bankai, that if he wants to let someone see it, he can make them see it. And maybe he takes the form of like this flaming, although it's not really flames, but like this flaming Ryatsu avatar, which would be kind of cool, like the soul of a king. But that would be kind of like the idea, and I like the idea of something that the level of power between Shikai and Bankai kind of shifts as you grow. Like the Shikai was far more powerful initially, and then the Bankai was actually weaker. But as the time went on and he grew and he overcame so much of himself, the Bankai finally became the actual what it was supposed to be, the stronger version of the Zanpakuto. Now, keep in mind, you'll always carry some guilt about some minor things. I accidentally said this. I shouldn't have said that. I'm carrying some guilt. And I think it's kind of powered by guilt a little bit. Shame, whatever. But overall, I think it works in the style we're using for Aragorn. So, now again, what's the weakness of the Zanpakuto? Well, I just said that the Shikai is actually stronger than the Bankai initially, but the Bankai would actually overtake the Shikai in time. It's one of those things that anyone with like an energy absorption ability would probably, at least for the Bankai, could probably counter to some degree. Anyone who has extrasensory or just honed battle senses could counter, or at least come toe to toe with the Bankai as well. There's not really a true weakness to the Zanpakuto. Technically, it's simply that it's got very unique standards, if you will. It's got very unique parameters for it. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.